Welcome back to another episode of Thinking That Matters. I'm Elizabeth Mahusay, your podcast host, and I am welcoming you from the new studio location. We're located within Riskwell. They specialize in commercial insurance, but the studio is located within their office. So this is our new space. So you will see us recording from here for the most part going forward. And I'm excited to welcome our guest today, Dana Stillwell. And Dana and I are Leadership McKinney graduates, class of 2025. Greatest class ever. Exactly. For those of you who do not know, the Leadership McKinney is this amazing experience for, yes, leadership development, but friendship development.
Absolutely.
Community connections. It is so cool. I'm so grateful to have been part of the experience. So with that, Dana, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, your background. I'm looking forward to hearing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And let me give a shout out to James. He was our small group mentor for Leadership McKinney for our project. And so thank you. And, thank you for having me to this space. I am Dana Stillwell. I work for the City of McKinney. I've been there just over 23 years.
Wow.
That's a long time. My title is Senior Development Liaison. No one really knows what that means. So what I do is work with commercial projects, and mostly projects that are incentivized by the city, either through MEDC, MCDC, or the City of McKinney. And these would be your high-profile projects. Currently, there's Venue that people.
The Sunset Venue, right?
Sunset Venue. People have probably seen construction going on there. We have a new project, the Cannon Beach Surf Park. A lot of projects in McKinney, and so what I do is I'm kind of the person in the middle that communicates with all the sides.
Okay.
So on any given project, just to give you an example, you would have maybe a developer, a business owner, an engineer, an architect, a general contractor, all those people on that side. And then on the city side, you have all the departments: building, planning, engineering, fire, health. And so I'm the person in the middle to kind of tie all that together. One point of contact. So if a business owner wants to know something about his project, but he doesn't know what department to call or a person to call, he calls me, and I vet that information out for them. So I love what I do for the City of McKinney. I'm just so thrilled to have landed my dream job some years ago.
Well, and the fact that you would call it your dream job, typically when people say something is a dream job, it taps into something that they're passionate about. So what is that for you?
I love helping people, and I've been with municipal government for, like I said, over 23 years. Prior to that, I worked for the University of Florida, working with students.
Wait, University of Florida, like go Gators?
Go Gators!
What?
The Gator Chomp.
Oh my word! You know Fred's a graduate from there, right?
I did not.
Yes,
Oh,
I
my
kind of count them as my football team because while I graduated from the University of South Florida, we didn't have a football team then. And so I was at a lot of the Gator games, and Fred and I would watch them together. That's so cool that you worked at UF. That's awesome.
I did. We still watch Florida Gator football.
It's a little disappointing lately.
Yes.
Oh my word.
Everyone has their years.
That's
off
right.
Years. So I loved my time there. I worked with students that were in the final years of their pharmacy education.
Okay.
And so I loved that. So that's where I met my husband, and we had our daughter. And anyone that's a grandparent will know they want to see those grandkids. And so as my parents were aging and starting to have health problems, it was really important for us to get a little closer to them. They were in Oklahoma, so they could spend time with their last grandchild. And so that's when we moved to McKinney in 2001. And
wow.
We've been here ever since.
That's amazing. What has been your favorite part about living in McKinney?
Oh my goodness, I have seen so much growth here. So that's a good thing and it's a bad thing. As I came from City Hall, so all the construction on Highway 5 and all the construction on El Dorado, and so it took me a little longer to get here. But I also look around and love that because I love McKinney's growth. When we moved here, it was about 50,000 people, and we are 4 times that now, more than 4 times that.
Yeah, we are.
So I look around, and I really have that sense of pride because of all these projects that I know that I maybe helped along the way, had some small part in them being a business here in McKinney today. So that's one part of what I love about McKinney. I also love we have an enormous amount of nonprofits here, people wanting to help other people. We have wonderful community leaders in this community that are so engaged. We have parks here that you can spend so much time in. There's just so many things I love about McKinney.
Yes. Lot of different aspects that it just makes it such a great place to live. I mean, we moved here from Florida. This December will be 15 years ago, which is kind of mind-boggling when I think about it. But the amount of growth that we have seen, I remember when, Custer was not 3 lanes, but 2 lanes to then 4 lanes to now 6 lanes to, it's amazing to think how much growth has occurred and is still occurring.
It used to take me from my home in McKinney about 45 minutes to go to Stonebriar Mall. I lived here when there was no 121, so it was a 2-lane road from here to Frisco. I can make that drive now in about 12 minutes. So
that's amazing.
It's amazing growth we've had.
Wow. So because you're in this space of, so you said senior development liaison, which by the way, thank you for explaining that because I wondered what you did. And I was in Leadership McKinney with you all year. But that is such an important space because I do a lot of work in the construction space. So when I think about, when you've got all of these different vendors, we're going to call them vendors, represented on a commercial project site, everything from the general contractor to the architecture to the owner to, in this case, the city, county, all of these different things, different people represented. I have to imagine if you're the one source for communication, that there may be times when that can be challenging.
You think?
So what would you say is one of the most challenging dynamics of really trying to manage all of these different expectations? And you're also, I'm assuming you have to think about the language around the communication and what's going out. So tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. So one of the most interesting things is I've noticed on the customer side, the architect, the engineer, the business owner, they're not always talking to each other. So I've had calls where the architect might call me and 20 minutes later the engineer might call me and they're asking me the same thing. And I'm thinking to myself, why don't they talk to each other? But they really don't, and that's okay. I'm here to, help them with whatever they need. But the challenging thing is keeping up with all the priorities of the project. My focus is to try and keep the project running smooth, as efficiently as possible. One of the things, and we can claw into this later where I got this mindset, but I really understand that time is money for business owners, for contractors. So that's always at the forefront of my mind. How can I help this project move forward with as few speed bumps, as possible?
Well, let's just dive into that on the time is money because, as an entrepreneur for 25 plus years, that, you learn that very quickly. When I like to joke with people, I live a don't work, don't eat lifestyle, right?
Absolutely.
Right. I don't have this mindset of, do nothing type of thing. Although you can be an entrepreneur and be very successful and have people doing things for you, right? Sure. But where did you learn that from? Where did that become anchored in your mindset?
So that was a belief that I learned watching my parents. And we talked before the show started. I grew up in the radio station business in small town in Oklahoma. Cushing, Oklahoma is where I grew up.
Okay.
Cushing is known as the oil pipeline capital of the world because all of the oil pipelines connect and cross in Cushing. And if you've ever seen any aerials, which you know, I'm sure many have not, but you see all these tank farms, the tank farms. So my father and mother bought the radio station in Cushing, Oklahoma in 1964. And up until just really a short time ago, it had stayed in my family. But in the radio station business, it's, you know, much like television, and you survive on advertising. And so it was if you don't work, you don't eat kind of a business. I grew up in that business. I started emptying the trash cans, vacuuming the floors, and washing coffee cups. And, you know, I probably worked for nothing, and learned every aspect of that business and did every role in that business. And that's what I learned. But I learned from my parents, very hardworking people, both of them. And they started with one radio station, and they were successful, and they had 2 more radio stations. They also started from scratch 2 newspapers.
Wow.
So my parents were extremely hardworking. But I understood at a very early age, time is money, and you don't have time to waste.
So were you ever a DJ?
I was a DJ. As we talked before, I might have the voice, but I never thought I was as good as others in my family. My sister had an awesome radio voice, and as did my brother and my father. But there were things that I did enjoy doing, and we talked about. I enjoyed writing the news. I am a newsaholic to this day. I watch people deliver the news, and I'm thinking in my mind, I would have done that different. Or
right.
I'm kind of critiquing in my mind, and there are a lot of great ones out there. So that's what I really enjoyed of the business. But I did everything in the business. I did news. I was a DJ. I sold ads. I was in management. I was a bookkeeper.
Wow.
In that small town family business, you will learn to do all those roles.
I think there's something to be said for family business and also being able to observe work ethic.
Yes.
I do think that can have such lasting impact on young people. And, you know, it makes me wonder, in today's world, how is that being translated, right?
Well, we spoiled our daughter a bit, but we also tried to teach her a value of a good work ethic. And I think we did well with her.
Same here.
And so we always want to make it a little bit easier for our kids than we think we had it. But as you look back, you think, man, I had it pretty good.
Yes.
And I think, you know, I've given you pretty good, and I want you to carry that on.
Yeah, carry. You know, isn't that interesting that you say that? I think about watching my parents work, and it was hard work. And, you know, in the moment you think, this is, bleh, you know, but then you look back, you know, when you're much older and you realize you're like, you know what, maybe it wasn't easy, but we had it good.
Yes.
Because how we define good can be vastly different from person to person, right?
Sure.
So that, I love that. And also too, all the different aspects of business and operationally running and owning a business that you were able to observe. So you said it's no longer in your family?
No. And so, and we'll get into, or we can go ahead and get into it. I think your values are shaped by experiences. Mm-hmm. And at an early age, I lost what I call the first bad thing that ever happened to me. I lost my sister, who worked with my mother at one of the radio stations. And and then lost my father. My brother took over the original radio station and ran that for a number of years. And unfortunately, he was killed in a car accident. So
you've had a lot of loss in your life.
I have had some loss. Yes, I have.
Wow.
And I think, again, some of those things that shape you into what you evolve into have huge impacts. Yeah. That had an impact, of course, on me, as it would anyone. And I saw some really talented people taken from us, you know, before their time.
That's tough.
It's tough.
How old was your sister when she died?
She was 39.
Wow.
She was the oldest. She was and I call her the smart one. She was one of these types that never had to open a book, but made straight A's. I mean, she was Miss Popularity of every group that she was ever involved in. And she was so talented, and she was so giving and loving. And so she and my mother ran one of the radio stations that our family had. But I remember her inviting strangers into her home for Thanksgiving. If you didn't have a place to go, you could always go to Kathleen's. I mean, she was really just an extraordinary person. And so, yes, some loss, but I look back at that of all the family members that I've lost and just say, man, I was so lucky to have gotten to know them.
Yeah, to spend as much life as you did with them.
Yes.
Yeah, so when you think about your dad, if we were talking before we started recording about things your dad would say to you, because for the purpose of the listening and viewing audience, you hear me talk regularly about limiting beliefs and really trying to identify them and getting guests to share like how they overcame them. And you mentioned, well, I don't know that I really dealt with that. And so of course I want you to share why, because you said, I think I would go the opposite direction. So tell us about that.
So my dad had 3 daughters and 1 son. And his motto was, girls can do anything boys can do, and sometimes they can do it better. So we were never held back because of our gender. So I don't have, I think, some of the issues that some people have. My mom as well, on the other hand, I mean, her biggest idea for how her children would turn out is get out of this small town, see the world, meet other people, meet other cultures, just, get out of the small town and see what is out there in the world. And then you can figure out what you want to be in that world. So I really had that upbringing of you're not limited by anything. And so I've really never had the mindset of, oh, this is holding me back or that is holding me back. I mean, there's things that, oh, I want to do this, and so let me figure out how to do that. And that maybe doesn't come to everyone or me as easily, but I've never felt held back. I hope no one ever feels held back. You can do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that there are people, well, I know there are people who do feel that they are held back for a variety of reasons. And so let's explore for a moment, because that's not your struggle, right? You feel that you're capable of doing whatever it is that maybe I want to, rather than me verbalizing it, you verbalize. How do you think about, let's say, I'm going to give you a couple of scenarios so that we can kind of needle in a little bit on how you think, right? So you are dealing with something you've never done before, right? What's your mindset going into this? I've never done this before, but walk me through it.
Wow. So that's a lot. So number one, I would say, let's assume it's something I'm interested in doing.
Right. Yes. Agreed. That's
Okay.
the assumption.
Yeah. Because if it's something I'm not interested in, I doubt that I'm going to want to put in the work to learn something new. But if it's something I'm interested in, oh man, I just can't wait for it. But there's probably a path. And I would think that path is, okay, well, what are the tools that I need to do this? And so, do I have these tools? Do I need to gather some more tools? What is it if I don't have the tools? Do I have the means to get that? And is that either through other people? And this leads me back to what we learned in Leadership McKinney about Clifton's strengths. And I tell you what, I love Libby. I just absolutely love Libby. But the Clifton strengths, I was so fascinated with because it was, these are your strengths, your top 10 strengths. And then you have a bottom, 10 and all that stuff in the middle. But for years I've had, and maybe you as well, your bosses, your supervisors say, well, you're really great at this, but you're not great at this. You should work on that. And once you accomplish that, but you could use a little work on that. Why don't you work on that? What Clifton's strengths teaches you is really lean into your top 10 and go find people that is your bottom 10, that's their top 10. And you surround yourself with those people. And I tell you what, that was freedom for me to hear about that. Because when you try and fix yourself to someone else's standards all the time, you start to become something that you're really not. And I never want to be anything but what I am. Some people love me and some people really don't love me. But what most everyone will say about Dana is that you always know where you stand with her. She just says it like it is. And I love that about myself. Some people aren't going to respond to that, and some people will. I don't really care, Elizabeth. I don't.
I love that.
I'm not out to be a people pleaser. I am out to, accomplish the things I want. My mom would tell you, were she here, sometimes Dana is like a bull in a china closet. And it took me a long time to figure out what that meant. And I have been able to get a little softer sometimes when I need to. But I don't think I would change. I don't think I would change at all. But that's how you would go about accomplishing something. Figure out, okay, what of my top 10 strengths I have, then what do I need? And let me go out and get that.
Well, I've been doing a lot of reading. Well, I love reading because one of my strengths is learner. That's one of my top 5. So I absolutely love learning. And the book by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan called Who, Not How speaks. They don't talk about Clifton's strengths in the book, at least not that I've heard yet. But they do talk about finding the right who's, the people that will take care of the hows.
Yes.
Because the reality is we were never meant to be everything.
Exactly.
And when we create space for other people who are just plain right better than we are, it can be a blessing for everyone, for us and then also for them. And so I love that explanation. And also, too, you really attack that from a very process-oriented space. And you also, something that you said that really triggered me, you said, when you said we're going to assume you're interested in it.
Right.
You were like, oh man, I can't wait. One of the things recently that I've just been hearing thematically in some of the reading is we say yes way too quickly to things that we really have no business saying yes to. And one of the gentlemen interviewed, he was saying that unless you can be like, yes, I love the idea of that, or I'm totally on board for that, then you likely should really think about whether or not you say yes to an opportunity.
Absolutely.
So I love that you started there because that's where our passion can meet our, and can be married to our ability in the accomplishment of something. And I think we're able to find a pathway to accomplish it much, much more easily. So I appreciate you sharing that. And also just knowing that your dad was very much you can do anything.
And that was at a time when male and female genders were, you had the role. My mom never fit the stereotype. She was not a stay-at-home mom. She was a loving mom, and please don't give me don't misunderstand that she wasn't a great mom. I had the most fabulous mom in the world, but she worked hard. And so we weren't driven by the stereotypes of what males should do and females should do. I had to mow the lawn. I had to take out the garbage. My brother had to learn how to do laundry, and he had to learn how to cook. And again, my parents' belief is, my parents didn't want my brother to get married because he didn't know how to cook. And so getting married would be the easiest way to solve that problem. He didn't want his daughters getting married because we couldn't do anything for ourselves.
Yeah.
And so and that's the one thing that man, I've really plugged away with my daughter. You be with someone because you want to be with them, not because you need to be or have to be.
Yeah. Well, and then that way you're building a relationship on two individuals that are making a choice to be together.
Exactly.
Right? And then it's then you're a team versus
Absolutely.
more of a codependency, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So I love that. I love that your dad really instilled that in you. And then you had said values shaped by experience. And you had talked about, some of the dynamics of your family and coming out of owning the radio stations. You're now in public service. So when you think about serving from a municipal standpoint, and these projects, for those of you who listening or watching, the projects that Dana talked about, these are massive projects in our community. So what's the overall, at the end of the day, how many billions of dollars for the venue?
That's about a $300 million project.
They're anticipating billions back into the economy.
Yes, over 10 years. I don't quote me on the numbers.
That's okay.
But maybe 10 billion.
Yeah, it's a lot
into the economy. Yes.
Yeah.
The Cannon Beach Surf Park. It's also another $200 to $300 million project. Encore Wire has just kicked off another huge expansion. Simpson Strong Tie is expanding. We have all these huge projects that I'm just so thrilled to get to be a part of. And they're making McKinney, what makes McKinney great is their destinations, but they're adding jobs, they're adding economic development to our community. They're, of course, added to the tax base. I tell all my customers, we're so glad you're here. Thank you for adding to our tax base. Thank you for creating jobs.
Which is incredibly important, where especially with the job market shifting the way that it is, with AI inevitably will eliminate certain jobs.
Sure.
Because of the reality that it can do it more efficiently, but creating other jobs that aren't going to be served by AI, and the experience venues that we're talking about, there's so many opportunities there. So I love that. Now, we were chatting about faith and things that are important, and you had mentioned that you have a favorite verse that you said if you had to pull one verse, so I want you to share that and why it's important to you.
Well, and what we were talking about, if you, and I won't talk a lot about faith, but if you haven't read the Bible, or if you don't spend a lot of time, I look at it for myself. If I only got one thing from the Bible, it would be this verse. And this is, I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. And that's John 15:5. So to me, that's it. That's just the one thing that you could take away that covers everything. If we have Jesus in our life, I think we will be great. If you don't,
it's tough.
It's tough.
Yeah. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Like nothing is like encompassing everything.
That's right. Right.
It's such a great, so I appreciate you sharing that. And when I think about, the aspects of the things that you've shared, you're passionate about helping people. You've really built a career on helping people, whether it be at the University of Florida or here with the City of McKinney, and going into adulthood, having had a father that really instilled in you that you can do anything that you put your mind to, that you're able to tackle, whether it's challenges or problems. I'm going to say from a standpoint of it's possible, especially if I'm interested in it, right?
Yes.
Because that's important. I think that's very important. And and really serving people well. And I can imagine that in your role as Senior Development Liaison, the amount of what I call pathway thinking, I've heard it called pathway thinking, that you have to embrace, which is we got to find a path to get to the appointed destination, and your ability to be able to uncover that is so intertwined with your story up to the point where you are.
I think so. I know we deal with staff that gets upset with customers that they don't always do the right thing or say the right thing. And my comeback to that is, okay, well, be butthurt about it for a minute and then
move on.
Let's move on, because we still have to help the customer. the customer is what's driving the residents and the businesses at the City of McKinney is what drives me to have a job. But it's also what I love to do. And so, yes, a customer may upset us in something they say or do. And don't get me wrong, there's some if you've been around construction, you know, there's some pretty salty people out there, but I never take it personally. I don't think it's ever meant personally. So I can get to that other side pretty quick and say, okay, well, I'm still going to help this customer. So that's just the way I do it.
But that's an example, though, of thinking that matters. When you're thinking that my job is to serve people, to help the customer, then you can get to the other side of that. You know, and I do like how you do give, you know, you're giving permission, be butthurt for a short time, but then move to the other side of that and get over it, ultimately, is how I would say it. Well, you know, my passion is helping people to cultivate thinking that matters. And so I love asking every single guest, because each guest brings a different perspective to the answer to that question. So Dana, tell us why you believe it is important to cultivate thinking that matters.
Thank you for the question. So one of the things that I have learned, and I am still learning, I am not perfect at it, is I talk less and listen more. And so I'm training myself to do that even more and more. And once you do that, once you are taking in the things that people want to share with you, number one, is the better relationships that you are going to build. You're going to build that closeness. You are certainly going to learn more about the person. But thinking that matters is also, so I don't want to limit it to that. I want to, you know, thinking that matters, doing what matters, loving what matters. And we talked about some of my personal experiences with some deaths, and you know, I've lost both my parents and I've lost 2 siblings. I absolutely know in this world what is important, and I know what isn't. And it's not that my work isn't important. It's really part of the whole fabric of me. But I understand that, you know, loving my family, loving my church and my faith, all that comes before anything else that I do. So thinking that matters, absolutely important, but also doing what matters and then loving what matters, I would say.
Well, what's interesting, as I'm listening to you, when we cultivate thinking that matters, I believe that becomes the foundation for doing what matters. Because from a brain standpoint, we take action on that which we have allowed to think, that we have thought about enough,
Yes.
that it moves us to action. And I believe that love in the way that God intended it is an action verb. It's not just something that we say.
Absolutely.
So, you know, it's the thinking that matters leads to doing that matters, and part of the doing that matters is loving what matters.
Right.
I love that progression. That is so good, and it really ties those three things to the foundation of why it is so significant to really guard our thinking. Absolutely. And to not allow it to get outside of us. Man, I absolutely loved getting to know more about your story, and also better understanding what you do within the city, which is, I think, such an important place to be. So, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm trying to say is she's a big deal in the city of McKinney.
Not so much, but thank you for saying so.
Well, maybe not so much to the public eye, but underneath that, it's what you do is incredibly important.
Well, and only let me say that any success that I have is also part of, you know, others like me. And I am the only one in the city of McKinney, but I work with a whole host of you have a whole team of people. Yes, and it starts with our city council and our city managers, and on down to all of the staff that really it takes to make a project successful. So Yes,
You're part
thank
of
you.
yes, yeah. I recognize you're part of a much larger much larger team. Well, I am so grateful that you said yes. We were able to get you in for an episode, and I want to challenge you, the viewer and the listener. How can you cultivate thinking that matters so that you are engaging in the doing that matters in your life, and literally the doing with what we heard from Dana that you can be really excited about, and in the midst of all of that, it helps you to cultivate a love that matters for the people that are most important in your life. Appreciate you, Dana. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me so much. I enjoyed this.